Good evening. My name is Shay, and I'm from the Chicago Abortion Fund, and I've had an abortion. And tonight we will be talking with Ronnie Patrick. She's our guest. She's from F.R.I.D.A, and F.R.I.D.A stands for Feminist Response and Disability Activism. We thought it was a great idea to bring Ronnie on as a guest tonight because, like our community, the low-income community, we are often marginalized and silenced in the reproductive justice movement, and so are the women in the disability community. So tonight we want to address some of the issues that they face in the reproductive health movement, and we want Ronnie to be the spokesperson, and we want to say welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Shay. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so we appreciate you coming on. Tonight I really want to know, why do you think it's important for groups like CAF and F.R.I.D.A to come together in the reproductive justice movement and express that we are allies and we are here to stand up for our reproductive rights?
Well, I mean, I think it's important because, you know, the whole idea about united, we're much stronger. You know, F.R.I.D.A is a group for women with disabilities, and so basically we're women, just like folks that are involved in the right for reproductive justice. The disability piece, I think, it brings another angle that maybe is not really understood in the, you know, typical reproductive justice groups. And so I think it's important for us to join together because there is a larger sort of male-dominated power structure. But first, I think women with disabilities need to get together to decide, like, where are we about our reproduction? Where are we about how folks look at our bodies or exploit our bodies or use our bodies? And where are we going to be in control of our own bodies? And we even have like a different spin than some of the groups that you named about end-of-life issues. So like assisted suicide. I think we need to be really clear about where we are so that some of the folks that may be supporting assisted suicide can understand that we are a little bit suspicious of assisted suicide because usually people who are assisted with suicide are women with disabilities who aren't typically terminal. They're typically women with very significant disabilities and are devalued, and therefore doctors recommend that they die. That's a little bit misunderstood in the reproductive justice movement, and I think that it's important for women with disabilities just to be clear about that before we join forces all together. But first of all, we are women, and so that's really critical in terms of joining us all together.
And that's interesting. I've heard myths that people believe women with disabilities and men don't even have sex or don't need abortions in a sense. And I'm a sexual being and you're a sexual being. You're no different than I. So I would like to just touch on a little bit so that you can educate people that people with disabilities are sexual beings. They have desires, they have needs, and sex and abortion is a real issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that you said that because I think that a lot of us are seen as asexual without sexuality. And then folks, because of that, because we grow up in this kind of society, we think that about ourselves. And so we aren't, we're, I think, shy away from expressing our sexuality, and that's like very radical for those folks that come out and say, "Look, I'm sexy," or "Look, I want to be with you in a sexual way," or "I want to get more information," or I masturbate. And I want to know, how do I do it better? How do I make my, it's like using toys and things like that. But the toys have to be accessible. So something that we can use with our disabilities. That kind of stuff is very, hush hush. But it's true. We're people. But there's a whole bunch of information that is written for people with disabilities because there's not a lot of information out there about us for ourselves. And then, I mean, that's kind of like, for me, that's the most important thing, is that people with disabilities understand and embrace their own sexuality. And sex is not, you know, is with other people, but it's also, you know, masturbation is like awesome and really critical for us, you know, in expressing our sexuality and just being like happy human beings. And why is that so wrong?
Right.
And then that does lead to us understanding about protection, about understanding about all the different, or the spectrum of sexual health, and that includes abortions.
And you know, I'm glad that you're able to address that, so that hearing things like that from me, being a person without a disability, you know, some people may believe it, some may not. But I think it's a little more affirmed when it comes to from a person with a disability. And knowing that sex and abortion is a real issue in your community, have you ever had any experience firsthand or secondhand with abortion?
For me, I actually, my mother has had an abortion, and she has had 2 abortions. She's been with my father since she was 17, and they met actually during the Vietnam War, and then, well, and in Vietnam it's called the American War, but anyway, but my mom became pregnant, and so they had set up sort of like a secret path, like sort of like an underground, where she, some Buddhist nuns actually helped her to get the abortions that she needed. And it was the first abortion she had was late term, and so she remembers the fetus, you know, seeing the fetus, and so it was something that she talked about when we were growing up. And so, you know, it's something that was a choice of her own. And my dad, even though he's a conservative person and he does vote Republican, he is somebody that says that abortion is something that women need to decide, because he himself knew that that was the best choice that my mother could make in her life, because he admits that he wasn't around to be supportive of her in that situation. And so she made that choice. And that's really knowing that in my own past, and understanding that I understood early that that has to be legal in our country and in our world.
So very true. We have a caller, so we're going to go ahead and take this call.
You know,
Hello?
one of the things that do women really realize, well, abortion is really a surgical procedure, and every time a woman have an abortion, it's always the possibility of winding up leaving scar tissue?
So, abortion is very much an issue, a real issue in your community, and also sexuality. But with you being very active in your community, do you think it's an open issue? Do you think it's openly discussed? Because